Hey guys, what's going on? I am attorney Michael Leline. I'm licensed in California and Texas to practice law, and I'm coming at you live today from Summerlin, Nevada. Good seeing you, Ovenburn. Give me some 5x5 so I know that we got comms. I know the other day I tried to go live from the dojo and I had a bunch of microphone problems. I've had some issues with my account being hacked and microphone and video problems and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that I've got it fixed, but hopefully you guys can tell me. And I'm just kind of waiting for a response to make sure before I start driving. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to go do a little workout this morning, trying to get back into my regular routine of at least 4 days a week minimum of weights and 2 to 3 days of walking and calisthenics at the park. But I want to make sure you guys can hear me before I get on my journey. All right, you got good sound. Right on, Oven Burn. Well, at least I got one person in the chat. Make sure to tell your friends and family. I know it's a Sunday, so that's usually a rough one. I know most of my audience are probably either hungover or at church because I have a pretty wide swath of people who watch me. And it's been a while since I've gone live, so I forgive you guys if you don't want to hang out with me this morning. Anyways, let's get into the show. So let's lay a little bit of a foundation. So when I was in California, when my kids, it looks like we lost our connection for a second. Are we back in? Oven Burn, give me some 5x5s. So I'm in a drop zone. So sometimes I'll just lose you and then we'll lose our audio and video. So I want to make sure I've got you guys on board. Oven Burn's got church today. Well, hopefully we can do church together here on my show. How's that? We'll do the church of parenting and homeschooling. How's that? So are we good? Do we have comms now again? Because I lost you guys for a minute. And I see there's usually about a 10 to 20 second delay. Okay, we're back in. Cool. All right. Right on, Oven. I appreciate. Now, Oven Burn, are you one of my moderators yet? Because I think I need to make you one. I think if you're not, you've definitely earned your spot. So just forgive me. I'm driving, guys, so I have to be safe. Don't want to end up in a sardine can on the way to the gym. All right. No church today. All right. That's cool. Yeah, Jeff. Well, I'm back. You know, let me give you a little bit about my background. All right. So I am a full-time lawyer. I practice law in 2 states, and I do a, I do a lot of pro bono work as well for civil rights claims like minorities and stuff who have been falsely arrested. Uh, and I help with the appellate briefs and stuff to try to get them out of prison. And that takes up an enormous amount of my time. And then the way that I earn my living is with catastrophic injury cases and workers' compensation claims because you can't really make any money trying to get people out of jail. They don't have any money. And civil rights cases, unless you've got like a police shooting or a tight handcuff case with an amputation, those are not cases that pay your bills as a lawyer. Because as a lawyer, you have an enormous amount of overhead. And because of that, with staff, continuing education to the bar, and all the other stuff that you have to do, it's very, very difficult to support a family and run a law firm unless you're doing like big injury claims or business litigation and stuff like that. So basically, I donate a large swath of my time to doing civil rights and Second Amendment rights cases where I'll help draft briefs and help with the appellate work. So I'm super busy, guys, so please forgive me for not being able to go live as much as I want to. But so today I want to lay a foundation like a lawyer does as to how I got involved in homeschooling and why. and sort of break down what's going on with the World Economic Forum, Randy Weingarten, and Larry Fink. And of course, the one thing that we know that they have in common is they definitely have the same religion in common. Larry Fink and Randy Weingarten are both part of the religion of the extreme far left progressives, which a lot of us parents call Marxists. And basically, they call it progressivism, but it really is just a code word for centralized control over every aspect of your day to day life. And it goes back to the argument of federalism versus anti federalism. Thomas Jefferson being an anti federalist, myself being an anti federalist, and Alexander Hamilton, who is lauded and put up on this pedestal by the leftists as he was a federalist. So they love him because he advocated for a central bank. And we know that guys like Larry Fink make their fortune because of the central banking system, because of the Federal Reserve banking system. So that is who we're dealing with. We're dealing with the battle between centralized control and limited government. So Larry Fink and the American Federation of Teachers, which is run by Randy Weingarten, is hardcore federalists. And by the way, when I started doing videos about abolishing the Federal Reserve banking system as being unconstitutional and a violation of our founding principles, and I started talking about how great Andrew Jackson was, within a couple of days, YouTube demonetized my channel. I got a message saying, "We think that you may be in violation of some of our policies," but of course they won't tell you what they are. You have 7 days to appeal the decision. And of course, being a lawyer, that doesn't set well with me because it's arbitrary and capricious. They don't tell you what the violation is. But then I did some more research and I found that they'd also timed me out as well for talking about vaccine efficacy. I mean, literally, if you read the side effects off the side of a vial of that medicine, you could potentially get a strike against your channel for medical misinformation. So I delved a little deeper, and what I found is that Google, the parent company of YouTube, has a partnership with the World Health Organization. And I'll tell you why this matters in a minute. Well, the World Health Organization is run by a guy who used to be on the Muslim terror watch list. And so now he's in charge of the WHO. And of course, I think under Biden, they took him off the terror watch list. But so there's been a battle between the left and right over whether or not America should be part of this World Health Organization, which is centralized control over your medical decisions. And you can even Google this. You can go do a Google search and type in WHO Google, and then in quotes, "We control the science." You'll literally see a spokesman for the World Health Organization saying, well, now that we have this partnership with Google, we control the science. We control all the search results over what you'll find about medicine and vaccines and health. So that's really interesting. So another reason why I advocate homeschooling and independent research and teaching your kids about logical fallacies and understanding sources of information. So, and that's going to segue into what we're going right now. The World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum are in fact controlled by many of the same what they call stakeholders. Larry Fink was just announced as the interim, I guess, chair of the World Economic Forum. What makes that important? Well, Larry Fink is the guy behind putting like transgender clothing in Target and the Bud Light commercials. It's his ESG policies from BlackRock. It's a $10 trillion corporation that controls people's stocks. And what he'll do is his company will buy at least 5% controlling interest or more in big corporations. And then he'll make sure that one of his people gets to sit on the board of directors. And then or more. And then they'll control the policy decisions of these big corporations. And one of them is ESG. I think it's called equity social governance or equitable social governance. And what that really is, it's a word for discrimination against white people, pretty much, and white males in particular. And what that means is you have to appoint a certain amount of people based on their religion. Well, if they're Muslim, or if they're transgender, or if they're a woman, or if they're part of what's called the minority community, you have to put them on their board, regardless of qualifications. You have to make them the CEO or the chairman. You have to make sure you have it's not based on merit, because they teach, and we'll talk about why they don't like merit in a minute, because they say that merit is a form of racism, right? So it's just crazy, because everything that I was taught in the Marine Corps went right out the window right there. So the World Economic Forum basically is behind a religion called transhumanism, where they want to integrate the human body with computers, et cetera, et cetera. Good seeing you, Tom. Um, Et cetera, et cetera. They want to basically, and transgenderism, because that helps control the population. And they're also the ones behind pushing for unearned wage increases. Now, why does that matter? Well, because contrary to what kids are taught in public schools, every time a small business has to give someone an unearned minimum wage increase, in other words, a living wage for an entry level job, that business has to raise their prices. And when that business raises their prices, things become more expensive. And when things become more expensive, rents go up. And that leads to the devaluation of our currency ultimately. So, and I don't want to get too far off the beaten path, but I'm just kind of showing you like the idiocracy of a non-merit based system, how it just basically raises prices, and it makes consumers lose confidence in our economic system and our governance, our governing systems. All right, so let's get into it. So the World Economic Forum. Oh, by the way, who in particular pushes for the minimum wage increases? The robotics industry, guys. The robotics industry are pushing for minimum wage increases and also population control. Why do you think that is? Well, use your brain, use math. All you got to do is connect the dots, Tom Shaw. So let's get into it really quick. So Randy Weingarten just recently married her wife. Randy Weingarten's wife is a rabbi, and so congratulations, Randy, to your new marriage, to your new wife, your rabbi wife. I hope that goes well with you. And the reason I'm telling you guys that is because this whole ESG and this whole World Economic Forum thing is also pushes alternative lifestyles, and they want to push it on the public school system. So they're trying to make the public schools into basically I don't know what you would want to call it, but they're trying to make the public school system into a basically political political education camps. So if your children are Christian, or they're Orthodox Jewish, or Hasidic, or Muslim, like where they have traditional family values, they want to get their hands on their brains when they're kindergartners, Weingarten and Fink, to basically recalibrate the way their brains think. We know that children are extremely impressionable at that age. And if you subject them to that type of education at a young age, well, they're going to become, because they're really into peer pressure. So they're going to get into that. They're going to be black, blue-haired mafia. And that is the goal behind this, this scheme. And so what happened? Randy Weingarten, about 3 weeks ago, just announced that the National Education Association, and by the way, Randy Weingarten is the head of the world's largest teachers union, a far left radical organization called the American Teachers Federation. About 90% of their union political campaign donations go to Democrats. In fact, most teachers, based upon my research, vote Democrat. And so they support the radical social engineering pogroms that have been put forth by the World Economic Forum and the NEA. So now the NEA has announced a partnership with the World Economic Forum. And so what got me into homeschooling primarily is when my kids came home, and again, I'm in an interracial marriage, but I'm a white guy, even though I don't consider myself to be white, I just consider myself to be a human being. My kids came home and they were like, well, Dad, we learned at school today that white people are the only people who can be racist, and that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. And so I had a talk with one of the teachers over there, and she said, we no longer want to be referred to as Mrs. or Mr. We want to be referred to as teacher or some, I don't know, some weird term that they had. So we pulled our kids out of public school. We left communist Fornia. And of course, that's where I practiced law. So it was really tough, but I don't want my kids exposed to that. So Gavin Newsom has been pushing this radical agenda. They lowered the age of consent for adult males to have sex with little boys. And they also have a program in their public school system where if the parent argues that they disagree with the school teacher's classification that their son is really a girl, that's considered to be potentially hate speech. And since public school teachers are mandatory reporters, they literally have the right now to take your children away from you, to have child protective services take your kids away from you if you have them in a public school and you disagree with that characterization by the school teacher. And this is true. This is not made up. And I can show you some case authorities about that as well. So I'm just pulling into the gym. So I just wanted to give you a little background about what's going on in California. Now, California also, and there's no paranoia here, James. It's just all fact. It's all verifiable facts. So if you don't want to believe it, that's fine, but it's all facts. And what does make me laugh a little bit is that Marxists always say that you're making stuff up, even though it's verifiable. And why don't they just admit that this is what they want to do instead of trying to pretend like it's not? Now, maybe you want to be referred to as defendant, right? Right, defendant. Sure, James. So, in any event, the issue that we ran into is we want our kids to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. We don't want them to learn social engineering. That's not why we have public schools. At least that's what we thought. But more and more since the creation of the National Education Association, that's what has been happening. And so as a result, we decided that it would be better to homeschool the kids and just focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, foreign languages, Latin, Spanish, things like that. Yeah, fish fart, that's just a sticker that we never took off when we leased the car. But it's just one of those things that says something about safety and all that stuff. So anyways, so let's get into the main subject of the show. So Randy Weingarten announced, excuse me, it's still early and I'm usually congested in the morning. Randy Weingarten announced this partnership with the World Economic Forum. Well, the World Economic Forum, again, they're a globalist organization that pushes basically transhumanism and worldwide centralized control over every aspect of your life. And Klaus Schwab, he's famous for saying, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." So that's the World Economic Forum. And so obviously that's right out of Karl Marx's book, A Communist Manifesto. And we believe in property rights as Americans. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree, Tom Shaw, that we believe in. Oh, right, James, I got you. That we believe that stop contracting with the state. Yes, that's right. Yes, human. Stop contracting with the state. There you go. So we believe in property rights. We are anti-federalists. We are along the same line of thinking. We're natural law rights advocates. We believe that our rights come from an all-powerful creator, just like it says in the Declaration of Independence. We do not want to be part of a globalist, centralized bureaucracy. Right, and they also push eating bugs. That's right, Tom. World Economic Forum wants you to eat crickets along with Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates is one of the stakeholders of the World Economic Forum, and I believe he also has a controlling interest in the World Health Organization. This is the guy who says we need to bury trees to control climate change. These are the same people who say that all the ice is going to melt and the West Coast is going to fall into the ocean. They've been saying that for the last 50 years. All right. And they're basically they're science deniers, in my opinion. But you can't talk about that on YouTube because you risk getting your channel demonetized for scientific misinformation. Again, why? Because they have a partnership with all these organizations that push these theories as though they're fact. And what they'll do is they'll censor anyone, even scientists and doctors who disagree, to create the false appearance of of a consensus. And we saw them doing that with the Hunter Biden laptop and with the uh, the safe and effective thing where they shut down the economy a few years ago. All right, Jody, good seeing you. So I'm just getting ready to go work out, but just really quickly, we're going to get into what happened. So the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten, far left radical, announced that the World Economic Forum and her are forming this partnership, so they can basically control the education agenda using the National Education Association. So obviously, Trump's trying to abolish the NEA and return education back to states and ultimately back to parents. And that is a real problem for the teachers' unions and the Democrat Party. Well, why? Because about 90% of the political campaign funding donations from teachers go to the Democrat Party. So they're going to lose an enormous amount. The Democrats are going to lose an enormous amount of money. And we know that under Biden and starting with Obama, the non governmental organizations funded by your taxes were used to funnel billions and billions of dollars into the coffers of these organizations, indirectly and directly. And so all that money is going to be cut off. So it's a real battle right now. Now, for people like me who just want the government to leave our kids alone and stay away from our children, we don't have a problem. I love teachers. I just don't think that teachers should be pushing political ideology on our children. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Right, the global threat, the global cooling threat that started in the 70s. That's right, Tom Shaw. So ultimately, here's what's going on. Larry Fink is the other part of the prong here. That's BlackRock, the $10 trillion stock. Basically, they control shares of major corporations and this ESG, equitable social governance. Basically what he says is you're not going to qualify for certain loans and things like that unless your corporation hires a certain amount of transgenders, certain amount of black people, certain amount of females, et cetera, regardless of qualification. You just have to prove that you have a certain amount of these races and these types of individuals, and then you'll qualify for all these things that we're offering. So, you take the gold and you have to take the consequences when you take their gold, right? So we said, you know what, we are going to homeschool our kids and we're out of there. But for a lot of parents just use public schools basically as babysitters to babysit their children. Hey, Lynn. And so I do kind of feel bad for you guys because you might be a single mom or you might be a dad who lost his wife for whatever reason. So the child has no mother to give them that affection and maternal love that only a biological woman can give a child because they have a biological gift that they were granted at birth to bear children and to give them that love and affection that men just don't give. Men have testosterone. We're designed to be hunters, gatherers, and providers. And women have those special gifts, those biological gifts that only a woman can give a child. And so then you send your kids off to a public school and they find a new mom in the form of a teacher, in the form of the group, in the form of the tribe, and then peer pressure. And then so when my kids started coming home and saying, we were told that only white people can be racist and white males in particular are, there was a word they used, but it was all basically just racism. And then I learned about this thing called critical race theory and intersectionalism, which which a lot of leftists denied was being pushed by the public schools. But then later, the NEA came out and admitted that they want to push critical race theory in the schools, which basically is a theory that all white people are racist, they're irredeemably guilty, and they have to be punished for the sins of their fathers, and they have to give reparations and eternally have guilt and shame for something that happened 200 or 300 years ago. And I guess it was like less than 1% of the population that even owned slaves, and they were sold by black slavers from Africa. But I guess those black slavers aren't liable or guilty. I don't really understand the philosophy. If somebody is an expert on that and they want to come on the show, I'd love to talk more about it. But the idea is to break up the family and make the state the family. That's really the goal behind these globalists, that the government is your new father. And we've seen that with Section 8 housing, starting with the Great Society under Lyndon Baines Johnson. The biological father is not allowed to live in the home with the biological mother of children if they want to receive welfare benefits and Section 8 housing and stuff like that. So it's a way for the government to basically become the new husband to the single mother, right? And then your child is stuck being raised by the state. So this new thing with Larry Fink is disconcerting. Now, many people say, well, Larry Fink backed off of the Bud Light and the Target, pushing, the men's bikinis where you push your junk in the back so you look like a girl and all that stuff. But I think that he still wants all that because it's part of what I was told by a parent group, a homeschooling group, that he's involved in Moloch and Baal worship, Baal, if you want to look at that. I don't know. I don't know enough about the guy, but I do know that he supports things that I would never support. And if he's going to be involved in any way, shape, or form in the education of our children, I don't want that. And what really bothers me more than anything about the far left is they always talk about how evil billionaires are, but guys like George Soros and I guess Larry Fink, who are the most richest men in the world, get a pass, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Right, Tom, I agree with that. So anyways, with this new partnership, we're going to see more and more of the same, more and more of the centralized control of the minds of your children. And even in California with Newsom, he's even pushing a new law that was just passed that children have to be taught how to recognize misinformation. In other words, if you don't get your news from CNN or MSNBC, it's fake news. That's it's real. It's real. It's fake news unless it comes from propagandized news agencies like NBC, ABC, CBS, PMSNBC, you name it. If it comes from a third party source like my channel or One America News or someone who just presents facts instead of political propaganda, it's not news and it's misinformation. And then, of course, we see the AI tools like ChatGPT and Grok. I mean, it's complete far left. 90% of the results are biased towards the left. So where do you get your information, right? And if your kids are taught that the only real information comes from politically biased sources, that's the next generation of voters and judges and lawyers. So that's what's going on, guys. So I want you to be wary of this World Economic Forum, National Education Association partnership, and to work towards forming parallel systems along with me and people on my channel to homeschool your kids and teach your children critical thinking. Critical thinking is the most important thing that you can ever teach a child, and it's the number one thing that they do not want public school kids to learn. You need to be able to recognize the differences between truth and falsity and propaganda. And so far, if you look at California, it's basically a propaganda state, and it's completely run by the far left progressives. And again, I don't have any problem with people having those political beliefs. I don't care who you sleep with. But if you want to force it on kindergartners, and if they're my kids, I've got a problem with that. So we let our feet do the walking, do the talking. And I recommend that if you don't want your children exposed to Marxist style propaganda, that you homeschool your kids. And so if you want to get involved in homeschooling, reach out to me. There's ways you can do it remotely. Absolutely, you can do it. And my son is already, since he's been homeschooling this year, he's already got 2 months of schoolwork done in less than a week. 2 months of schoolwork done in less than a week. 2 months. My daughter should have her associate's degree within the next year and a half. She's only 14, so do the math. And I've already got her on a program where we can fast track her into becoming a lawyer. So if you're really serious about your kids' education, the number one thing you should be focusing on is critical skills, critical thinking. That's right, Mr. Osgood, Mithrism. And also getting over to my channel at Rumble. If you guys want to support my channel, you can give me super chats over at Rumble. They're not called super chats, but if you want to donate money, if you want to become part of my team, go over to Rumble, join my channel at Rumble. It's under the same exact name, Michael Leline, and just join the channel, and you can become part of my team, which is growing and growing and growing. And I recommend that the problem with YouTube is it's highly censored and they don't like channels like mine. So if you want to be able to have free speech and not be censored, I'm going to start doing shows over there about side effects, about mRNA, about things you're not allowed, verboten speech on YouTube that you're not allowed to talk about here. So I highly recommend that you get over to my Rumble channel. And Mr. Osgood, I think the Statue of Liberty has green hair already, right? but but if you want to donate money, that's how you do it. Or you can go to my YouTube channel and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad. Get out of that Marxist run education system and just learn how to be a lawyer the old fashioned way by studying law under a judge or a lawyer for 4 years and then taking the bar that way. Get away from the brainwashing and social engineering that is public education and the academic institutions, and start learning how to be a critical thinker. Free thought is the key to liberty, and discipline equals freedom. So for all you guys who are at home right now, get your butt into the gym. I'm in the gym parking lot right now. Get your butt over to the gym, start training, start working out, start eating right, get off the sugar. Get off the sugar. It is death. It's white death. White sugar, refined sugar, cornstarch, seed oils encourage inflammation, which encourages cancer. And who benefits from all that? The pharmaceutical industry. That's who benefits from it. This whole love your body image that you're 800 pounds and morbidly obese. Love that about yourself. Don't love that about yourself. That's terrible. All that does is enrich doctors because now they can sell you some kind of a medicine to control the symptoms when all you really needed was good nutrition and exercise. Right, guys? Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. So, with that being said, be on the lookout for the World Economic Forum National Education Association partnership. Join me in pushing to abolish the National Education Association. We saw with its creation a downward spiral of the educational standards in this country. They're trying to outlaw math and reading in some states as racist, right? And they've already gotten rid of cursive writing, which is what all of our founding documents were written in. So our kids can't even read our founding documents how they were written, making it easier for AI to rewrite them because all of our kids are getting their truth from AI, which was programmed by people at Silicon Valley. AI is basically programmed by people who hate people like you and I. And so it's very biased against things that we support. And if that's what our children are being encouraged to use as a source of information, we are in real, real big trouble, guys. So, with that being said, guys, I'm going to close it out for today. I'm going to do my best to go live again later this week. And if I can't, I think what I'm going to start doing, guys, is start filming videos that I premiere throughout the week, just in case I'm not able to go live, because I start a couple of trials coming up and it's been getting very difficult for me to do these shows. But in the meantime, make sure to like and subscribe, make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police